Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming, and this is From the Depths and another fleet review for the ships for the Royal Navy. And I'm going to try and keep this a little briefer than I did the last one. I need to get back into the flow of videos and talking and cut a little of the provocation out. This will be a fairly quick one, no combat. This is my merchant marine vehicles that I'm going to use in adventure mode, and first of all, these are going to be the core of the fleet, in that these will hold most of the resources, do the building, repairing and that type of work within the fleet. These will be the prime source of materials, so all the other ships will be basically defending this merchant marine fleet. That's my idea. Good or bad, it's what I've come up with and what I'm going to give a go and see what happens. So, logistics. This is the key to any warfare, as certain people are finding out now. Having good logistics, having good ways of storing your material, moving them around, mining them, etc. So, I have done this based upon the Empire based ships. Now, Empire ships were basically merchant marine ships which were bought or built for the UK government under their Ministry of War Transport. So anything with an Empire name was basically World War II ship that was built for or by the UK government during World War II. With a few exceptions, but that is the basic idea. And the first ship I've done is class of ship. At the moment I've only got two sort of levels of ship, but we maybe look at other versions later on when it gets into a more modern type of arena. But this is the based upon I'll bring a picture up just here, but the CHANT or F type coaster. So the CHANT was was channel tanker. And it also became, once they took out the oil tanks and replaced it with dry goods, it was the F-type coaster. So these were a small ship with a single diesel engine and screw, only did about 7.5 knots, held about 400 tons of supplies, oil, etc. And they were built from prefabricated parts. So most of the ship was prefabricated, moved to the shipyard, put together to make the bigger ship, built early in the war until the end and afterwards. And a lot of them, they were fairly solid, as with most marine vessels. A lot of these carried on for quite a long time. During the war, they were used around the UK Channel area, as the name would suggest, moving supplies to and from ships, and because of their low draft, they were able to go up river areas and into shallow water. So one example of where they were used would be during the D-Day landings, where lots of these were used early on before they could get tankers into the ports. These would go into the beach areas and be able to unload all of the fuel and supplies onto either other vessels or onto the shore to supply the armies that were trying to move on before they could get the Mulberry Docks and all the other large port areas to bring in larger tankers. So they did provide a very important support during that time. So let's have a look at it. Some simple parts about it. 8,000 materials. It's only to go slowly, 8 meters a second. It's got very little firepower. We've got a couple of custom 30mm guns, and on the bow there is a quad 20, which we can go and have a look at. Let's see. We'll go and have a look around the ship first. So, as with most of the larger ships, I've tried to make it a little bit walkable. There is a transport pad there, so I can move on to other areas. At the moment, it has two resource gatherers, and this is not quad. It's a twin 40 on the front. Anyway, not going to make much difference. And I can't get down to here. That's annoying. I might have to fix that one. Okay, let's go over the top. So it has a steam engine for the miners if the standard engine can't provide enough power. So if we go down into the hold, we've got a heartstone up here. So there's a basic heartstone, so we can look after, survive on the ship in adventure mode. Plenty of supplies in here, could be increased, but we've kept it at this level, and at the moment we've got 180,000 materials on board. And this is the steam engine, so this has got control blocks, so that only comes on if there's not enough power. If I'm in a resource zone where I can have more miners, etc., then that might be a reason why I bring them. The steam engine might come online. Okay, go this way. This is the engine room, and we've got a nice little diesel in here. Might recolour that actually, yes. But anyway, it's just a very simple diesel and a single propeller shaft, so nothing amazingly surprising here as far as the ship goes. And if I go back here, we have blueprint spawner and docking station to be able to do the build vehicles. Basic idea of this will run away from people. It won't try and fight. So it's got a couple of control blocks which basically set I'll turn the UI on, so only return back to, and this one automatically goes into resource gathering mode, so it'll automatically go to a resource point that it knows about or is aware of if there's no enemies around. If there is, let's see if I can get it, enemy within 4,900, it will run, and the run is basically stay away from them, 160 degrees, just keep running. That's all it basically does. So nice and simple, that one. I might change that actually to say, right, let's stay in our assigned area until the enemy's a little closer. Let's say 2,000, then start running. Don't know what you think about that. Maybe not. I'll change that later on. At the moment, they're just run away, keep as much distance as possible. They don't go very fast. 12 meters a second at maximum, 8 in their cruise mode. So that is the minor version. And if I now take over the other ship, which is the armed version, so in this one, very similar, just a couple of differences. Most of it is identical. Mainly on here we've got weapons and no steam and a little bit more supplies. So we've got 192,000 supplies. We've got a quad 40 on the back, the dual 30s on the side here. We've also got let's just get over here, it's not easy to get underneath those. We've got some quad 20s in this little raised area. So this is an armed type F coaster and some quad 20 at the front, based upon some pictures I saw. I'll try to bring up a picture of what I based this upon. It was an F-type coaster that was armed for basically mainly anti-air, and this will again run away with the miner and shoot basically so most of its armaments on the back, because it's shooting at what is basically chasing it is the most important part of this ship. Other stats, so this is 12.5k materials, so a little bit more expensive, mainly because of the weapons. Firepower is only 6, so you're not expecting anything really much of this, and it's not really armoured, it's just got, generally it's wooden slopes. But this is good enough to be able to run away back to the fleet, etc. If it's out gathering resources from destroyed ships, this can go out and gather it and at least to be able to get back to the fleet if there's a problem. It doesn't have the resource gathering side to it. The engines and underneath are the same. It just hasn't got the open part at the front for the steam engine. Otherwise, it is identical. Now, I have already created a couple of more Empire ships, which I shall now bring in. Wait one moment. So this is the Empire Balham, based upon a picture I saw. It's not exactly like the picture, but what I've done is made this as a retrofittable version. So the key components of this vessel won't destroy themselves when it's being rebuilt or retrofitted, so it should retrofit quite nicely. It's added a little bit of armor around the AI and other areas, and the main cockpit area, bridge area, sorry. So it's a little bit more survivable. It's got extra cargo bays, and the engine room is now moved to the back. Very similar engine, just at the back instead of being just behind, with these two extra areas on them. Armament is roughly the same. 20mm on the front, 30s on the side, and a dual 40 on the rear, which is an addition that the first F-Type didn't have. So still very underarmed. Has 367,000 cargo. Oops, wrong one. And if I go to V, there we go. 16,000 materials. Obviously a lot longer. Firepower 3.5, still very. Ignore the 37 top speed. The actual top speed is about 12. 9 is the cruise speed. Yeah, so again, not an armoured vehicle. This is still going to run away. It's just a little bit bigger, and otherwise very similar, and it's a direct retrofit. And finally, we've got the Empire Commerce. And this is an armed merchantman, and it actually was based upon the real Empire Commerce. I'm trying to bring up the view. Well, I'll try to make it, if it was, I think it would be something about like that, similar to the picture. Try to make it sort of look similar in some ways. The back should be a bit bigger, but otherwise it's sort of okay. The armament is increased a little. Quad 20s, dual 40s in the centre, more quad 20s, and a quad 40 on the rear. Otherwise very similar. Engine on this one is actually in the centre. The real ship actually took part in quite a few Mediterranean merchant convoys, and was actually sunk on the way to Algiers, so it was actually there, and it was actually an armed version. The picture is not armed, but they did have room for DMs, which is with the merchant marine gunners, for the guns on the ship. I haven't got any details of exactly what guns were on it, but it was armed during the convoy to be able to, defend the ships, etc. Just some stats. 20k, or nearly 21. 6.3 firepower, obviously not much. Armour 18.4, generally would. Cruise speed 9, ignore that 29. It actually has got top speed about 12. For some reason, if it's out of the water and you drop it in, the propeller, single propeller, gains enough momentum to give it a very sharp impetus initially. Anyway, that is the Commerce. So that is the ships, based upon, or again, on historical ships. Based upon the pictures I've shown is the basic shape I've gone for on these vessels, even if they're not exactly replicas. Again, I don't use mimics. I tend to do everything with standard blocks rather than mimics. That's just the way I've tended to do things in the game. Again, if you want to rebuild them and make them even better, great. But I didn't do how much cargo this has got. This has got 408,000. So having, let's say, 2 of these and 1 miner is going to give us 1.2 million resources, which is going to be more than enough to supply the fleet as such. Again, these have an AI which will run away. You know, same sort of settings. This one's actually set at 4,000, but anything, try and stay at least 4,000 away. Basically, it's going to run away from people and only come back to the fleet if there is nothing in the area. May change that a little bit, actually, on the armed ones, because I want them to stay around the miner. So the miner's the key vessel, so I'll have a think about that. At the moment, when something comes into range, they'll all just scatter. Effectively, they'll start off, but as things get closer, they'll tend to head off in different directions. So it's like, imagine the old convoys in the Atlantic. If they saw a big raider coming in, at first they stayed in their little convoy formation, but eventually they all just scattered. I'll have to have a think about that, what I'm gonna do, and that's annoying. It's doing that. Anyway, we'll have a look at some of the controls on it when it's in the fleet. Any comments, please let me know. This is a little quicker, obviously. On this particular one, we've got some more combat vehicles, but this is basically the logistics vehicles and merchant marine for the Royal Navy in the adventure mode. Any comments about this, let me know down below. But as always, keep playing the game and have fun.